How's it going, folks? I wasn't really wanting to make this video. As I look back at it, I started to question myself, and everyone is different, right? Everyone brought up differently, X, Y, and Z, right? So yesterday I have met up with family. My father's one of his good friends' son. I haven't catch up with him for probably more than a year and a bit. And, I honestly thought we're just going to have a quick catch up, have a chit chat. It is what it is. And then out of nowhere, having this strong experience talk. And I was there, I was like, it must have been my father thing then. Made him wanting to talk about this and that. And he's not right or wrong, If I was a single person, I would have said the same thing that what's coming out of his mouth, right? And what I mean by that is the fact that you have a different lens when you're single or when you're in a parenthood phase in life. And unfortunately, in his view, is taking full custody of my daughter and give up my work. Alright? Because what's going on with the household or things like that. And that being said, it sounds perfect. It sounds great. In that perspective, you have what's that word? In that perspective, to know the whole thing like that, it started to, you have to come from a different lens to look at this whole thing. He's coming from a government side of lens, and obviously, like I said, whatever is being said or the laws and the power and everything in the Western world, it's there for a reason. Your life can be intervened by the government and the bank. You have no control, right? And when he discuss about it, and one of the area is saying the fact that, and I never looked at it, and I'm started to look at it. Your life has always been unfair. You should start chasing fairness in your life. There's so much unfair moments that we've all been taking advantage, whether it's a workplace, whether it's the friends, colleagues, or the loved one that you have. And, when you go through that whole thing, you started to question the whole thing, right? Was it worth it? Was it, you want to go for that lens or this lens? And he wanted me to take full custody of my daughter, all right? And raise my daughter full time. And I told him I would like to even think about that phase, but when you have a debt over your head, it is very hard to imagine to go to that step. And unfortunately, many of us who has entered parenthood may not end up what is being said since day one. There's a lot of commitment, a lot of changes, a lot of commitment, and there's some sacrifices you have to be made. The easiest part is making love and bringing the child in this world. But to raise a child in a certain level or certain way, that's a different story, right? I can't answer, everyone has a different upbringing of their child, their culture. So I try to look at all sorts of lenses, right? Upbringing and everything like that. And one of the areas he did talk many, many times, I'm being unfair, which I told him so many times, my life has always been unfair. I don't know, even if I be treated fair, I don't know what does it feel like to be treated like fair. And I told him that. But he's been banging on it all the time. And in life, unfortunately, there's all unfairness. If you try to be fair all the time, trying to, go to ACCC or go to the government body and go through this and that, It may sound great, but at the end of the day, it may backfire you because they say, well, he's a troublemaker. If there's a trouble, he's going to raise the issue immediately. Like I said, in theory, it sounds brilliant. It sounds great. That's your right, whatever. In reality, it may not work the best way how it is. Whether you want to survive, whether it's for the income or whatever. But yeah, just to think about the whole thing and what he's been telling me. One of the areas I did talk to him is like, it's not what you think it is. The day when you have a wife or the day you have a child and the day that you go for a divorce or separation, you go taste what I taste through. And it's not something that is that easy. We all know what is fairness and what is the right way. But in reality, our mind doesn't work that way. Right? So that was the conversation that I had with him. But he's still banging on. Should, have the child with you, X, Y, and Z. I'm like, how many rentals out there is willing to take me on board, a single father and a child with me? Not many accommodation. That's the answer. So the society doesn't like people like me bringing a child and renting at someone's property, whether it's a single father or single mother, it doesn't matter. 2 days ago, my cousin has sent me 32 photos of his rental property that he has literally wanting to sell his property, so he kicked the tenant out. And the outcome of the damage is horrific in some form of area. When I looked at it, I'm like, how is it possible that you have water damage on the vanity and as well as the doors? Right? You started to think about it. Then later on, you start to say to yourself, is it because of misuse, deliberate misuse because of X, Y, and Z? Then the more I looked at it, I look back at it now and I saw the way how my daughter playing water today in a small portable bathtub. We put it in a big bathtub because she doesn't really need that much water. And, she likes to pour water out with a cup, right? And it's fun. And that's what I started to say to myself, you know what? If I was a landlord, I would have done the same thing as well. I wouldn't want any of the child to go and rent in my place. I just wanted to have a minimal fixture and try to have as much years yield for rent or X, Y, and Z, whatever what you want to say, right? That being said, it makes more sense to me now. I start to realize, kids is a problematic in the household. If you have, issues like that, what is the best way to prevent it? That is not something that I could say. You can prevent, you can manage, and you control. As a parent, it is very difficult to look at the whole thing, And so that being said, you have to look in a different lens, and I have to look at my ex's lens. Even though I'm not sure, are we working out? We're in the middle of it, but I'm not sure in the bigger picture. But for now, I'll say it's sort of like 50-50 partial in a relationship. I won't say 100%. But for me to look at the whole thing and to follow what my dad's friend son is saying, it may not work for everyone unless if it's like real harm, right? Do you really want to have a child protection to remove the child, or the government to remove the child off the mother and having me 100%? May not be the best outcome if I look at it, the whole thing. And the more I think about it, and what my other mate who has been divorced and have 4 kids, he said the same thing, like, that person you spoke to, he has no right to tell you what to do because he has no debt, really much debt level on top of his head, or family orientated, or being married, or have kids. He shouldn't give you advice at all. A child needs a mother and father regardless what the situation is. So many people can laugh at me the way how I pay money to the baby mama. Alright, I'm not going to say the figure here because it's a very large figure. Right? Everyone says you're being unfair. You're being so fair to the person. At the end of the day, I'm not here to say good or bad. Sometimes maybe you feel in your instinct that maybe that's the right thing to do. Right? So that being said, I got nothing to say here. And to be said fair or unfair, that really struck me because I've always been unfair in my life. My parents divorced, parents used me for house, trapping, and it's always been used. It never was loved. My parents divorced at the age of 7 when I only lived with my father the rest of his life. And I think what he tried to say is follow your father's footsteps and take custody. It is very hard to take custody when your child is 3 years old. If it's like 7, if it's like 10 or 12, it's a lot easier. 3 years old is too much. I'm letting you know. 3 years old is way too much. And that's why I said that video, what I go through with that person. And I told them, it's not what you think it is. It sounds perfect, it sounds brilliant, it sounds the best of the best idea, but in reality, it doesn't work that way. So, the moral of the story is the fact that we all have all sorts of lens, and especially when you're dating someone or married to someone who is not Australian born, and you have to understand where their upbringing is and their environment. And I'm not saying what I'm doing right now is the best method. At the moment right now, it's probably a band-aid fix, and what he's claiming is a band-aid is not going to last long. And I'm just there and I'm like saying, the separation, the divorce, the relationship breakdown, this is a serious thing, there was moments that you question yourself, if suicide was the answer to end this whole thing. There was moments to think about it. But that being said, it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. I'm not saying everyone has a perfect solution. I believe that everyone has a very different approach to it. Whether it's good and bad, that is the choice or option that you deliver to hope the best things ever. It doesn't work that way.